Welcome to Fireside Yankees. My name is Alex, my co-host here, Nick Nielsen. And today we want to give some love to Jameson Taillon, one of the more underrated starting pitchers for this Yankees team right now. Of course, we know the starting rotation has been absolutely insane. They all should be getting some Cy Young voting at this point in time. And honestly, they could all end up being all-stars. You know, Luis Severino's probably having the worst season of the bunch, but he's still having an ace quality season, which is just absolutely insane. Had another great outing recently against Detroit. I was there for that game. He looked awesome. He was killing it. It was hot out there too. So really impressed by his ability to just continue to dominate and really show that he's fully back.
LeBron can never
fight the hit. Yeah, right. Fight the heat, and he's clearly back from that injury. You know, the Tommy John surgery, the groin issue he suffered afterward. Like, he is fully 100% back, and the Yankees rotation has dealt with a lot of injuries and adversity the last couple seasons, and now it's all finally coming together. Matt Blake proven to be an unbelievable hire for this team. He's incorporated a cutter into all of their repertoires and sequences, and we want to focus on Taillon today and how unbelievably successful he's been and why the consistency has been a catalyst for his success this year. So, Nick, before we dive into Jameson Taillon and his performance, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing very well, Alex. Doing very well. Excited for JMO bump day. I mean, I feel like at this point, I'm excited for every starting pitcher's bump day. It's actually incredible. Like, this rotation is legitimately going to be one of the historically best if they can keep up what they're doing. And I posted on Twitter, and we talked about it in one of our in our previous episodes. This Yankees team could have like a dozen all-stars. Like, it's pretty insane how talented this team is. And of those all-stars, like 6 or 7 of them are on the pitching side. So that should just speak bounds to the job that Matt Blake has done. And I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I want to say 4 years ago, when Matt Blake was brought over to the Yankees, I wrote an extensive article on Empire Sports Media on why Matt Blake was the signing of the offseason and why he would benefit the Yankees for years to come. I will say, unfortunately, this is before everything. I did use Trevor Bauer as a reference to how good he is. So looking back, guys, you got to remember this is before everything. But focus on the Matt Blake good stuff. So go check that out. It's awesome to see the work he's put in and it come out on the other side and show, if that makes sense. Like, Matt Blake has been working with the pitchers in years past, and there has been moments where it's like, oh, you can see promise there with this guy. But overall, the pitching hasn't been as elite as one would have wanted it to have been with Matt Blake when he came over. Last year was pretty good, actually. It was actually really good last year. It was like the first year we kind of saw it. And then this year, we're just seeing all of like everything that we could have wanted to have seen. Like, every pitcher has developed and improved except for Aroldis Chapman. And he's not one of Matt Blake's peers. He's not one of his Padawans. I don't know, man. It's just, the pitching is just off the rails. The team is just continuing to hit its stride. Every time I feel like, I don't know if we're going to get this game. It's 1-0, 2-0. We're not hitting well. They just pull it out and they come back and win. They've got the most comeback wins in baseball. And they've got the most, and I believe when they pass the 7th inning with the lead, they're 30-0 this season. So it's like, you've got 1 and 2 right there. Like that when you're doing both things really well, you can't mess up. So I don't know. I'm just very happy with this Yankees team right now.
Yeah, me too. I mean, look, I personally, you could make the argument that Nestor Cortez is the most underrated of the bunch, but I think he's being properly rated now. I think people are really understand how good he is and how good he's been. Finally, right? And I think it's finally like at that point where like, okay, Nestor is an ace right now. Like, he is performing at that high of a level. So who is the most underrated guy on this team that nobody's really talking about? It's probably Jameson Taillon. And I honestly think he definitely is not being talked about as one of the better starting pitchers on this team right now. He deserves a little bit more love, so I wanted to send him a little bit of positivity. 30 years old, guy coming off a season where he had some positive odds. Yeah, he had an ankle injury last year, torn up some ligaments at the latter portion of the season, had some shoulder inflammation issues, finished with a 4.30 ERA over 144 innings.
Is solid. It's not
which
bad.
Is not
it's
bad.
Like solid.
It's not
what we expected out of JMO this year, honestly. Like, I would have been happy with that this year.
Yeah, I mean, coming off a season where he only pitched 37 innings, had Tommy John surgery,
exactly.
That was about as much as you can expect. And then this year, he's taken his game to a whole different level. And Matt Blake, again, catalyst behind the scenes, 2.30 ERA this season over 58.2 innings pitched, a 6.75 strikeouts per nine, a little bit down from years past, but I don't really care because he has a
Yeah.
career low 0.77 walks per nine, and he's giving up 5.8% of his fly balls are turning into home runs. It's basically nothing.
It's insane.
0.61 home runs per nine, 81% left on base rate, 44.3% ground ball rate. The guy is just shining across
He's
the
a
board. He's not a
machine.
strikeout. He's not a strikeout generator. He is a weak contact generator,
And that's what
Nick. So when you're
it's
looking
so
at
hard to
him,
be that guy though. It's like
exactly,
in
it
today's
is.
baseball, I will say, in today's era of baseball, I truly believe this. And I think that maybe like John Boy had like once talked about this as well, and he may be on my side on this, where it's like I think it's more impressive to be able to generate like a lot of soft contact than it is to be a strikeout guy that gives up a home run or two a game. Because it's like at the end of the day, if you're a soft contact guy and no one can get on base and you're not allowing any extra base hits, basically what JMO's been doing, then you're gonna be a guy that goes 7, 8 innings every game. Whereas if you're a strikeout guy, you're probably going to be more of a 5, 6 inning guy unless you're one of the best of the best. Like there are very few Corbin Burnses out there, Shane McClanahan's out there, Garrett Cole's out there. Honestly, Nestor Cortez is now. Like Jameson Tayo and what he does is he induces soft contact. And this year speaks to it like perfectly. His hard contact percentage is a career low at 27.7%. He's also averaging the second highest soft contact percentage of his career at 20.3%, the highest since he's been a Yankee. So all of like that's what I love to see is that when people hit it, when they square up on it, when they make contact, it's like a dribbler, it's like a weak pop fly, it's like a ground ball. It's not a 380-foot nuke. It's like okay, ooh, but like I feel very comfortable seeing Jameson Taillon out there in the fourth, fifth, sixth innings when you're seeing the guys in the order a third time around. And that's what I feel like is so valuable in today's era of baseball, where it's like you see a lot of pitchers get like hammered the third time they face the guys in the order. Like players on the Red Sox have a problem with that, like Tanner Howe, Garrett Whitlock. That's why those guys aren't really starting pitchers because they can't face the order the third time through. Jesus Luzardo struggled with it a ton last year. Hunter Green's struggling with it a bit this year. So like there's something to be said about being able to navigate a lineup 1 through 9 3 times over, more or less. And that's what Jameson Taillon's been doing. Like his walk per nine of 0.77 is the lowest of all qualified starting pitchers in baseball. Like he just doesn't give away free passes, doesn't give up hard contact, doesn't allow the home run ball, and goes 6, 7 innings each start. It seems like almost automatically now. Like I could not be happier with Jameson Taillon this season. And I wish I could be doing the take a shot of Jameson for every strikeout he has. Because this season's the best one to do it because he's not striking people out.
He's not striking people out, but it doesn't matter, right? Like as you
Yeah.
said, sometimes you want a guy who generates weaker contact than a guy that's going to throw 100 miles an hour but give up 2 homers a game or a homer. Like Garrett Cole, he traditionally will dominate in the last pitch of the game. He'll give up a homer in the 7th inning, and then he'll get pulled,
Yep.
which isn't that big of a deal because usually it's just a solo homer. Yankees
Yeah.
have had some run support at that point, so
But
it's
even
not a
look at
big
that
deal.
Baltimore series where he gave up 4 home
Right,
runs and he still
right.
went
When
8
he's
innings.
off, when
Like he
he's
still
off,
went 8
it's
innings and he
not
gave up
great.
5 runs. But it's like, okay, Garrett, you had 11 strikeouts and you went 8 innings, but you threw
Yeah,
109 pitches and you gave up 5 runs. Whereas JMO, it's like the other day when he went into the 8th, he had 93 pitches going into the 8th inning. I'm like,
right.
he could easily pitch another inning. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's a workhorse on the mound. He reminds me a lot of like Adam Wainwright when Adam Wainwright was like it's kind of what he's doing now still. Where Adam Wainwright's just a workhorse. He's going to get you that 170 innings plus. Not going to strike a lot of people out, but he's not going to give up a lot of home runs. Not going to walk a lot of batters, and he's going to and he's going to induce a lot of soft contact. Like that's what I love about JMO. His archetype is so rare and he's succeeding. And I want the Yankees to extend him. I just don't know what his contract would probably look like. Like I could see like a 4-year, $65 million, 4-year, $70 million deal on the table. I just don't know if the Yankees would want to do that. But Jameson's earned every bit of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, they should extend him. If he can stay healthy this whole year, it'll be hard for them not to. But then you got to
Exactly.
think about Aaron Judge's big contract. That's one that you have to deal with. I mean, look, okay, so there is some money coming off the books, right? You do have money coming from Zach Britton. You do have money coming from Aroldis Chapman. You do have money coming from Joey Gallo. There is money to spend next year.
Yes.
It's just a matter of can you replace 3 impact players?
Exactly. That's the hard thing.
How do you do that?
That's
Right.
why I
So
feel
how do
like
you do that?
going to
That's the
get
thing.
Hap instead of Benintendi seems like the better move because Hap at least
Right.
gives you another year of, okay, we can figure our shit out. We can figure out what we want to do with this money, and we'll have some more money coming off the book. Because if we get Hap for in a trade, he has another year plus this one, whereas Benintendi only has this one. So it's like if we get Hap, we at least know that we have an outfielder for next season. And we know after next season, Donaldson's money will be coming off the books. We may not be paying IKF. Like Rizzo's contract will be over. So like there's a couple of options, and we'll have money coming off the books more in 2 seasons. But you have to look at every guy in this rotation and be like, there's not a case to not extend you, if that makes sense. Like I was advocating before this season, well before Jameson Taillon, that Jordan Montgomery should be extended. I'm a huge Monty fan. I think long before Taillon's season this year, he was the most underrated arm on our team. And Monty, we've seen what he's been doing this year. He's just the definition of consistency. But that's actually an interesting question. Let me ask you that. If the Yankees had to extend one or the other, Montgomery or Taillon, who would you prefer? For me, it'd be Monty because he's the like kind of homegrown kid and he's a lefty.
In my opinion, I would also go Monty because you're talking about a guy who's consistently gotten better every year. He is reliable. He doesn't get hurt, knock on wood. Jameson Taillon will have one good season under his belt, and let's not act like Montgomery's not having equally as an effective season right now.
No, he's been very good.
He's been lights out, like you said, lefty, giving you some versatility in the bat in the. And now
that he's throwing that sinker, like I like that because Monty was never a guy that was good at throwing high strikes, in my opinion. He could never blow people by with his fastball because he sat at like 93 with his fastball. But now he's throwing a sinker and he's throwing a cutter a lot more with that curveball and changeup, and it's like okay. We're seeing the rewards coming from, and he's throwing a 2-seam. Like everything that Monty's doing this year is kind of like what all the other Yankees pitchers are doing. They've all incorporated some sort of cutter or sinker. They've all incorporated some sort of other fastball that they can work off of and change the eye level and deception with the hitter. Like you talked about, you gave a great point in one of our previous episodes where you're like, that's what makes the cutters and the sliders so valuable is because they look the exact same until one breaks 13 more inches than the other. And that's what all of our pitchers are doing. And Taillon this year has mastered that. He's throwing his fastball this year 25% less than he did last year. He's throwing it 33% of the time. Last year, it was like 59. And that's because of the fact that he's throwing a sinker, he's throwing a cutter, he's throwing his changeup a lot more, and he's throwing a slider a lot more. And he's throwing like 5 pitches. Like I think the lowest pitch usage he has is 9% this season. So he's mixing everything in, and we're seeing the results come. Like line drive percentage this year is the lowest in his career at 16%. Infield fly ball percentage is the best in his career at 15.9%. Every single stat is showing that Jameson Taillon has found his groove like never before this year.
Right. And look, the thing is with Taillon is that his game has changed as well. You know, look at Montgomery's pitch usage. Taillon has also had a pretty significant shift, right? Looking at his fastball, same as last year, 94 miles an hour, but it's 10% decrease. So he's not, like you said, not using it as much. He's seen about 2% decrease in his his slider. His slider miles per hour, his velocity is down a whole mile per hour to 96. Where it was 86, not, and it was 87 last year.
97 mile an hour slider for JMO.
My God, could you imagine? Christmas. It's like Obi-Wan. It's like using the Force.
I was about to
say. So that's an 86 mile an hour slider. But then we're talking about the cutter, you know, infusing this cutter at 13.8% at 90.3 miles an hour into the mix. So his fastball and cutter have, you know, of course you have different movement with the cutter, but it's also, you know, fast enough where you can't tell exactly what it's going to do. So it's moving in different directions. You look at the curveball, 81 miles an hour. Then you look at the changeup, 87. He's got an unbelievable array of pitches, which he's using and completely throwing batters off, right? So like when you think about Taillon last year, for example, you think about it as a batter, right? As a batter, you're expecting either fastball, slider, or a breaking ball. Curveball or changeup, right? Yeah. Like those are the things you're looking for. But the problem was last year, his changeup and slider were the same velocity. And then his curveball, he was only using it at 19%. So you can kind of see when the curveball is coming out of the hand, you can kind of see the different motion, right? So slider and changeup are the same exact velocity almost. And then you have the fastball at 94 miles an hour. It took when the third, like you said earlier, when you get to the order the third time, batters have already seen all those pitches. Now you add a cutter to the mix, and he can infuse that with his fastball. And then now you have your slider, the sinker. Look,
so he just throws many different pitches. 5 pitches, dude. It's insane.
5 pitches. It's impossible. If you're a batter, there's no way you're figuring out what pitches,
dare I say. Because I'm looking at a savant here, and they may classify things differently than Fangraphs and then like Cameron Grove's pitching bot, granted. But on Baseball Savant, it says he's throwing his fastball 33% of the time, his slider 17%, his curveball 14, his cutter 14, his sinker 13, and his changeup 8. And he's thrown the least amount of pitches of any pitch was his changeup, was 70 pitches. So it's crazy. That's basically like 6 different types of pitches that he's throwing at a decent amount. So where haters now do not know what to sit on. Jameson Tayo in the past has always been, in my opinion, a fastball, curveball, changeup pitcher. And this year, he's changed that entirely to where now his changeup has taken the back seat, and he's throwing his other fastball variants a lot more. And he's throwing that slider and that curveball and trying to balance those two out at kind of an even clip. It's everything is working for him and clicking for him now. And I do hope that it's not just a stretch of like a good 2 months of baseball. Because I will say last year, remember when Jameson Taillon had that like 2 month stretch where he like carried the starting pitchers? But if this is maintainable and if he does keep this up, even if he's like a low 3, mid 3 ERA pitcher this year, that's all you could ask for if you're the Yankees. Because like again, coming into spring training, dude, we didn't even think he was going to pitch for the first couple weeks because he had that ankle injury. And then he just like as all of a sudden started, named as the 4th or the 5th man in the rotation. I think it was the 4th man because Sevy was the 5. And it's like, okay, here we go. It's the JMO show. And now you're seeing the results. And he is just dotting this season. And he doesn't seem phased, doesn't seem like he gets aggravated or like shit, I gave up an extra base hit. Like he just seems like his left on base percentage, I could be mistaken, is pretty great this year in year compared to it's 81% this year, a career high. Last year was 73. Year before, granted, he didn't pitch in 2019, before he got injured. It was at a career low of 52%. So like for me to see the fact that his left on base percentage is better, his ground ball percentage is better. There's like one stat I think maybe that is not a drastic improvement from year over year totals for Jameson Taillon. And then you have like another like 8 or 9 that are like career bests. It's incredible to see. He deserves so much more love and attention. Like not just from Yankees fans, from baseball fans. Like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, Nestor is getting his due. Like thank God people are starting to notice and he's kind of becoming properly rated. But next up on that bump list is Jameson Tayo.
Yeah, and he deserves it a lot. I mean, you just like we said before, the weak contact he's generating, he's seeing a 7% increase this year in contact outside of the strike zone, meaning that batters are chasing a lot of his pitches. 70% of batters, 70% contact. It's ridiculous seeing batters just have no idea where the pitches are ending up. Like that's the craziest thing. It's awesome. So, they're making contact, but it's weak because we're talking about outside the strike zone. So they're either leaning in or they're reaching out, or it's high or it's low. Like they're not making good contact. It's clear and obvious. He's not striking out a lot of guys because his velocity isn't his game, but it's his break and his curve and his pitch repertoire and his unpredictability that has completely baffled hitters. And if he can maintain his health, he's going to continue dominating. And I'm pretty excited to see if he ends up with an all-star bid this year. At this point, I would say it would be ludicrous. It'd be ludicrous not to include him in the all-star game.
At a 2.3 I think all 5 Yankees arms in the rotation. But like the hard thing is like how the voters are, how stupid some people are with their like criteria. Like I've seen a lot of shit going around now that Pete Alonso deserves to be like MVP, and I'm like, guys, Pete Alonso is like 3rd on his team in F4, like 20th in baseball. Like no, I'm saying for NL. And like Pete Alonso, like he doesn't deserve to be MVP for the NL. Like there's like 5 or 6 players that are better than him in the NL alone. And then you want to factor in AL. It's like, you really want to tell me that Pete Alonso is the MVP? Like, come on, let's think with our minds here. But that's kind of my point, is that a lot of people get distracted by the shiny stats and stuff. We saw the year where Rick Porcello won Cy Young because he had the most wins in baseball. And then we saw the other year where Jacob deGrom had like a negative like win-loss record and won Cy Young. So it's like, you don't know what the voters are going to do. And I think it's going to be very interesting for the All-Star game if they choose to leave 1 or 2 of the Yankees starting pitchers out come that time, who they will choose to leave out, because Cole and Nestor are a lock. And then you got to choose one of the latter 3. You got to choose Monty, Tayo, and Severino for sure at this point. Like there's no argument that you can't pick one of them. And that's where it's going to come down to, like, will the Yankees have 5 starting pitchers in the All-Star game?
I mean, maybe the whole rotation. I'll say this. I don't think Severino will get it because he did start a little bit slow, but he's picked it up lately. I think there's arguments to make that the top 4 guys could. I don't think Severino's just there quite yet, but I do think he's on pace to, if the All-Star game was at the end of the year, I think he would make it. But it doesn't matter, right? Screw the All-Star game. It's about the World Series. And when the rotation comes around, my question is, this is the interesting question. When the playoffs come around and that rotation shrinks to 3 guys, do you even shrink it to 3 guys? Or do you just keep it 5?
I say you do 3 or 4. I say you do probably middle ground 4, and then you just use Severino and Monty, or Severino and Taillon as a double header kind of guy.
I mean, that's insane. That's
the thing, though. I mean, someone brought up a great point where I forget who it was. There's like a Twitter comment where it's like, I like seeing Severino to Schmidt or Severino to King. Like, I feel like those two are really nice combinations. And honestly, Schmidt's been so solid this year. I think he had that one rough outing, but as a bullpen arm now, he's starting to capitalize on all of his pitches. And now he's starting to throw like a cutter and a sinker. Like, every single guy on the team is throwing a damn cutter and sinker. It's awesome.
Matt Blake has some knowledge about why cutters and sinkers.
It's got to be the movement.
There.
It's got to be the movement. Like the RPMs, the break, the drop, the deception, the eye level shifts. Because sinkers are one of the most valuable pitches in baseball. Like, that's for sure. Like, for a long time there are a few guys that threw a really, really good sinker. And that's why pitchers like Corey Kluber were like the best in baseball. Madison Bumgarner for a while threw a sinker. So it's like, you got a lot of baseball has changed now. And now you have guys that throw 97, 98 mile an hour sinkers, and like Miguel Castro and Clay Holmes and Jonathan Loaizaga. So it makes sense that Matt Blake's like, okay, fuck all the noise, just throw that. I don't know how anyone could hit that. That's a literal blitz ball out there, wiffle ball. And then you see what happens when they throw it and they locate. That's the thing. When Miguel Castro can locate, he's so good. But watching him not locate is one of the most painful experiences as a Yankees fan this season. Same with Litke. Litke has nasty stuff, but he can't throw strikes. And now we're seeing what happens when those guys get trotted out there in high leverage situations. But sorry, that was a little bit of a sidebar. But to kind of wrap back around, I think playoff rotation, if the playoffs started tomorrow, do or die game Nestor. If it's a 7-game series, you go Nestor, Cole, Monty, Tayo, and Severino, Nestor, Cole, and then you probably win in 6 games. Like, I don't see how anyone can beat. See how anyone can beat the rotation right now. Like, our rotation's best in baseball. We're beating good teams. We're destroying the bad teams, except for a couple losses to the fucking Orioles. That's the thing. People love to shit on the Yankees for not having beaten really good competition. When if you look at the teams that have played the Dodgers have the least games played against opponents over 500 and the most games played against opponents under 500. And yet people think the Dodgers are like elite and like a really good team. And the Mets, I believe, also have the same amount of games played against teams under 500 as the Yankees do. And we've seen how Mets fans have been this year. They've been unhinged.
They got
MVP, my ass.
They got a taste of success and they're all
don't know how to act.
But hey, I'll give it to them. They've been waiting a long, long time to have some sustained success.
And we got Rangers hockey tonight.
And Rangers hockey tonight. Yeah, look, New York sports is back, baby. We are in the midst of it, and we are building. So, guys, if you enjoyed this video talking about Jameson Taillon, how underrated he's been for this team, and why he deserves a lot more attention and love, make sure to drop a like and subscription below, and drop your comments in the YouTube channel, letting us know what you think about Jameson Taillon in this starting rotation. Much love, as always. We'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.